lost you. Your style garbage in the trash, I toast you. If you stand in the way, I'ma walk through Dale Earnhardt NASCAR, lost you. Dale Earnhardt NASCAR, lost you.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Freddie Ruger, man. Today I'm coming to you live, man, from the balcony of the crib. You know, a lot of these YouTubers, man, they gotta stay in the basement or hide in the room because they ain't really got their own spot, bro. Me, I can move around and do what I want to do, man. Give you a change of scenery. Anyway, like I said, man, this is Unfiltered National News. I'm your loyal host, Freddie Ruger, and today we're going to bring you the story of a man named Nathaniel Woods. To anybody that know me, know I am not talking about my father. That is my father's first and last name, but this man that we're about to talk about is not my father. Another coincidence, the actual crime that happened on June 17th. I just had a son on June 17th, but it didn't happen this year. It happened way back in 2004. This is a throwback story that I'm bringing y'all, but that's just two coincidences, man. The dude got my daddy first and last name, Nathaniel Woods, and the crime that he was put to death for happened on my new son's birthday, June 17th. Whoa. That's a lot to take in for me myself, so it really made me dive deep into the story, and I really dove deep into the story. I did a lot of investigating from a lot of different sources, so I really appreciate y'all watching the video to the end. I will be back with some more commentary. This is Unfiltered National News. I'm your loyal host. You see it. And we'll be back soon, man. I'll be right back to you with some more commentary on the subject. There is no way to tell how many of the 1,534 people executed since 1976 may have been innocent. Courts do not generally entertain claims of innocence when the defendant is dead. Defense attorneys move on to cases where clients' lives can still be saved. Nathaniel Woods, convicted 2005, executed 2020. On June 17, 2004, 3 police officers were shot dead at a drug house on the west side of Birmingham, Alabama. It was a horrifying scene. Officer Charles Bennett lay on his back near the front door with a bullet wound in his head. The semi-automatic rifle that had inflicted the wound lay nearby. Inside, officers Carlos Curly Owen and Harley Christum III were sprawled out on the kitchen floor. One officer, Michael Collins, had ran away and survived. He told his colleagues at the Birmingham Police Department that Kerry Spencer and Nathaniel Woods, lifelong friends, were responsible. Spencer was a shooter, but he had not acted alone, police alleged. Woods was charged as an accomplice, and in Alabama, that's a capital offense punishable by death. The Jefferson County prosecutors told the jury at his 2005 trial that Woods hated law enforcement and had lured the officers into the house so Spencer could kill them. Assistant District Attorney argued that although he did not fire the fatal shots, Woods had masterminded the whole thing and his actions was equally significant as Spencer's. During her closing arguments, the district attorney said he wanted them to be like fish in a barrel. Prosecutors called witnesses who testified they heard Woods talking about his disgust for the police. They called a so-called handwriting expert to tell the jury that Woods had written lyrics to a song by rapper Dr. Dre on a piece of paper in his county jail cell that referred to the police as pigs. They called Officer Collins, who recounted the events that unfolded at the house on that day of the shooting, and they called the victims' wives, who said they wanted Woods to be sentenced to death. The defense's most valuable piece of evidence was Spencer's testimony from his own trial earlier that year, in which he was sentenced to death for his role in the shootings. He testified that the officers had harassed the residents of the house that day. They were attacking Woods when he shot them, Spencer said, and he feared for both of their lives. At the end of the highly publicized trial, Woods was convicted of capital murder, and the jury recommended a death sentence by a vote of 10-2. The judge upheld the recommendation, and Woods was sent to join Spencer on death row. Woods' attorney have collected evidence that they say shows that Woods or Spencer did not plot to kill the officers. They argued that the shooting had been brought on by years of police misconduct involving a bribery scheme. They argued that key witnesses falsely testified or didn't testify at all as part of undisclosed deal with the police, and they alleged that Woods' trial attorney, neither of whom had tried capital murder cases before, was deficient. None of the alleged evidence was ever considered by Alabama courts because the first two attorneys assigned to Woods made strategic mistakes in raising issues with the case and missed crucial deadlines to file their appeals. These errors devastated his case and his chances to win his appeal and have new evidence heard by courts. On the day of the shooting, police visited the house 3 times. Spencer testified that the first time the officer Owens came by himself between 6 and 8 a.m. He showed up again later that morning, Spencer testified, looking for Bubba, a drug dealer who ran his business from the house, says Collins. Christian arrived for backup. Collins testified that he arrived to find Woods yelling obscenities at the officers and telling them to get off the property. The officers did not make any arrests, but they were upset by his behavior. So they ran Woods' name through a database in search of outstanding warrants. Collins said the search returned a misdemeanor arrest warrant, but the officers didn't serve it right away because of administrative issues. Later that afternoon, Collins said they returned to the house with a warrant. That warrant was never recovered from the scene, according to the trial testimony. Spencer was the first to go to trial. Spencer's attorney argued self-defense. On the morning of the shooting, Spencer testified 2 officers made death threats to him and Woods. Christian III, he said, told them that he would be back with body bags for the 2 of them. He told the jury they was always effing with them and had attempted to sneak into the house on one occasion. Spencer testified that Woods caught Owens on video trying to break in through a window. The jury recommended that Spencer be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but Jefferson County Circuit Judge Tommy Nail overrode that recommendation, sentenced him to die. Judges could override jury's recommendations until the state abolished the practice until 2017. After Spencer was sentenced to death, the district attorney offered Woods a plea deal for 20 to 25 years in prison. But Woods refused the deal because his attorneys told him that the state had to prove he pulled the trigger for him to be convicted of capital murder. This was not true under Alabama law. But Woods trusted his attorney's words. It would prove to be a horrible mistake. Because Woods was not arguing self-defense, the judge refused to allow any evidence of police misconduct into the trial. In Alabama, there is no statewide public defense system, so the quality of Woods' representation was determined by whoever was willing to take on the case. The biggest blow in Woods' case came when his first attorney prematurely raised claims without sufficient evidence to support them, essentially blocking them from being used in the future. Then, his next set of attorneys failed to challenge Woods' conviction in the state's courts, all of which barred him from ever having his case seriously heard. When asked about Woods' appeal, Spencer was shocked that Woods was set to die before him. His representation had been slightly better over the past year, so his appeals are still pending in federal court. Nate ain't done nothing. My N-word is actually 100% innocent, he said. All he did that day was get beat up and ran. 84% of Alabama executions in modern era have been carried out for crimes involving white victims, even though only 20% of the homicides were white. Nathaniel Woods was born October 24, 1976, and was executed at age 43, March 5th, 2020, at 9:01 p.m. The curtains to the viewing room opened at 8:37 p.m. Woods did not have any last words, and no one from his family or friends were present to witness the execution. Following the warden's reading of the death warrant, Woods sat up on the gurney and stared straight ahead to one of the 3 viewing rooms. As the warden left the room, Woods laid his head down. At 8:40 p.m., Woods sat back up and began mouthing words. His fist was clenched, while his right hand index finger was stuck out in an apparent sign of Islamic faith. At 8:43 p.m., Woods laid his head back down on the gurney and stared to his right. He lifted his head and lay down again. Then he did it once more, minutes later. Woods moved his arms against the restraints before the 8:45 p.m. consciousness check, but did not respond to the consciousness check. Minutes later, Woods' left arm jerked upwards against the restraint. He was gone. His arm fell, and no movement was seen following that moment. It was 9:01 p.m. After his death, Kim Kardashian mourned heavily. Man. I'm going to say that he was wrongfully executed because he was an accomplice. But under Alabama law, that don't necessarily mean that you can't be found guilty of capital murder. I believe that his lawyers should be disbarred, fired, or they should never be able to practice law again for telling him to not take those 20 to 25. If that's put on the table besides your life and you know you had an involvement in a crime, I believe he should have took those 20 to 25. And we can't blame it all on the lawyers because at the end of the day, he had a choice, but they kind of convinced him to do that. He could have been on his way home right now. And the sad part about it is he was put to death before the actual shooter. He wasn't even the shooter. And he was put to death before the actual shooter of the 3 cops. My condolences go out to the cops and their family. Here at UnFiltered National News, we have no bias. We have no hatred towards cops. But if they were dirty cops, I'm not going to say they got what they deserve, but when you roll around in mud, you get dirty. The whole time he was fighting this case, Kim Kardashian was fighting for not his release, but just so he didn't get put to death, so they could redo his sentencing. And when he was executed, she mourned a lot over his death on social media. This is a very sad story of Nathaniel Woods, who I feel was wrongfully convicted. Not wrongfully convicted, but wrongfully executed. But according to the state of Alabama law, everything upheld. Sad story, man. It really seemed like a lot of police corruption, a lot of police cover-ups. But I'm going to go ahead and get off of that because I don't need the police on my trail. But anyway, man, I done gave you the facts straight from different sources. You can go look it up, do your own research like I encourage you to at all times. Big shout out, man, to all my subscribers. currently at 4,011. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers, man. Help me get there. Let's run this up so I can keep bringing y'all dope content. And like I said, man, keep liking my videos, keep sharing my videos, keep coming and getting some of this game, man, because behind every story is a message. And I'm not going to exactly tell you what the message is, but just listen to the story and take whatever you can take for your personal life and use it. Again, man, this is Unfiltered National News. I'm your loyal host. That's dope. I decided to do it right here this time instead of up here, but right here. That's fire. But it's Unfiltered National News, man. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to all the haters. I'm out.